Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of ClearPath LeaderCast. My name is Craig Anderson. I am the President and Chief Executive Coach of ClearPath Coaching and Consulting. Every other week, I come here to speak live to talk about different leadership topics. And this information is based on my 30 plus years of leadership experience in Fortune 500 companies and running my own small business and working with leaders over the last 4 years as they grow and develop from kind of accidental leaders, people who found themselves in positions of authority, and helping them grow into the confident, competent leader that they really viewed themselves desiring to be over time. So today we're going to touch on kind of a touchy subject, but relevant right now. You know, last week, if any of you are big LinkedIn followers, you might have seen a gentleman by the name of Braden Wallachie, I apologize if I got his name wrong, post about a layoff that he had to do for his team. And it was very teary-eyed and all full of his regret and how hard it was on him and how much he loved all his team members. And I don't deny any of those things. He was reviled, he was mocked, he was applauded. A lot of different things happened in result to that video. But really, the core mistake I think he made here is he made a leadership or a layoff event, which is really about how it impacts your employees and what you're going to do for your employees, or how you can try and help employees through this transition where you're really completely disrupting their lives in a dramatic and painful way. And he made it about him. And layoffs are never about you. They're driven by you. They may even be your fault because of decisions that you made, but they're not about you. And when you make it about you, you blow up the whole process. It's not easy for anyone, but no one's having a pity party for the leader who has to do it. Trust me, in my time in corporate America, I was in an industry that went through a lot of swings. We staffed way up. We had to cut way down. I had to do a lot of layoffs. Somebody, when I went to a new job, said, "Oh, he's the hatchet man." I'm not proud of it, but I did it. Some of those were my decisions to make. Some of those I had to do because that was my job from on high. I was told that we had to make those adjustments. So, you know, it's hard to do layoffs, absolutely. But does anyone care how hard it was on the leader to do it? No, nobody really cares, nor should they. So layoffs are going to happen. Hopefully they're a last resort. Hopefully you have made good plans. You've not overstaffed. You've made right business decisions, and you're prepared for a tough time in the market. But if that's not the case, layoffs are going to happen. So kind of three overarching things to know anytime you go into a layoff situation is: one, there's no great way to announce a layoff. We go through a lot of planning. We think through all these different ways we want to do it. You can do a phone call. You can try and do it individually. You can do it in groups and teams. There's no good way. There's no way you're going to come out of the other side of that with people high-fiving you, say, "Man, this was the best layoff I ever did. Well done." It's just not going to happen. Two, again, not about you. It's about the people whose lives you are impacting. And three, and this is a huge mistake, and these leaders just, they need to be slapped, is, have the courage of your convictions if you're going to do it. If you are making the decision to lay people off, step up and do it. Don't delegate it off to somebody else. Don't hand it off to somebody else. Do it yourself. And even worse, don't be that leader who stands in the room, drops the bomb, and walks out. You stay in there. You're there for the team as much as you can be during this time, even when you hand it over to HR to talk about what they really care about, which is what happens from there. You need to stand in that gap. You need to stand up and realize that you need to take responsibility for the decisions that you've made. So going into this, again, difficult topic, but three things that I think are really important. And I talked about this week in the blog as well. Three things to consider if you unfortunately have to do layoffs in your organization. First, act quickly. When you start getting into a layoff situation, you're probably going to have to run a lot of numbers. You may need some help doing some of that analysis. Others are going to be involved. It's very rare that it's just you that's making this decision. There's usually a lot of different pieces that have to get pulled together. So kicking this around, delaying it, what happens is you run the risk of the information leaking. Something's going to get left on a printer. Something's going to get left on a desk. I mean, we work really hard to make sure those things don't happen, but they happen. People start acting weird. The people in the know start acting weird, and people start asking them questions. And so things get really dicey. So when you know this is going to happen, make the decision and act quickly. Don't make the decision and wait on it for 6 or 8 weeks. Make the decision, act quickly, and get it done. That may sound a little cruel because obviously you're going to let people go from their jobs, But that environment where people are waiting for that axe to fall, or where you're asking people to hold that information back, is a very difficult one to create in your business. So if you're going to have to do this, make sure you act quickly. Now let's talk about when you do have to have these conversations, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's with a group, whether, if you have a remote, especially these days where we have these broad remote workforces, a lot of times it's going to be on a Zoom call. And there's that famous example of the guy who very derogatorily and terribly did it over a Zoom call to, I want to say dozens, if not hundreds of people. So the lead point in this is, look, there's no good way to do this, but act with empathy. Act with knowing that you are doing something disruptive to someone's lives, trying to empathize with that, have a care. And maybe the best way to empathize here is to do it quickly. I was in one scenario where the boss just it felt like forever, but felt the need to justify to the decision to the people getting laid off. They don't care. They know it's coming. As soon as they sat down in that room and the Kleenex were on the table, they knew what was going to happen. So going into some long buildup of all the things you did trying to avoid this problem, with a history of this and the background of that, nobody cares. The empathetic thing to do is to look everybody in the eye and say, today I have to announce something very difficult. Your positions are being eliminated. This was a difficult decision to make, but this is the decision we have to communicate to you today. Here's what's going to happen from here. Typically what happens then is you have an HR person or an HR consultant there with you. You turn it over to them because they will talk through what the packages might look like and the things that are going to happen from there for the people. You may want to say, and your last day here will be this day. That's about it. Get to the point. People know what's happening. Thank them for the work that they've done for you, and then turn it over to HR to take it from there. And you just sit and you get through it. It's going to feel like forever, but just imagine if you were on the other side of that table. So you sit there, you work their way through it, and get your thank you, get it quickly, and that's what you need to do. And then the last piece, and I've seen this mistake made. I made this mistake once. I let myself be talked into that we had to make the decision in the announcement of the layoff, but someone on the team said, I really need him here for, 6 or 8 weeks to finish a project. What a terrible idea. Look, if you're going to go through and make this layoff announcement, get through it and get them moved on so they can start moving on to whatever their next opportunity is going to be. Maybe keep them around for a week if some things need to be wrapped up, but releasing them sooner than later is the better option. When you let people stay around, you say, well, we're going to keep you here to finish a project and then your job's eliminated. Well, one, that's just a slap in the face because you're saying, hey, we don't really care about you as a person. You're a cog in the wheel. So we're going to throw you out of here. But first, finish this work. And if you don't finish the work, you're not going to get the severance. It's a terrible way to approach it. Two, it's like looking at The Walking Dead. You're uncomfortable. Everyone else is uncomfortable. The people who didn't lose their jobs feel survivor guilt. They don't know how to interact. You don't know how to interact as the leader. And they don't know how to interact. It's an incredibly unfair thing to do to people. So let them, release them as soon as you make this announcement or as quickly as possible after the announcement's made. So that's really it. It's difficult. There's a lot that goes into it, but there's no magic bullet. You just have to do it. So that's what I really encourage you to do is get to the point. Don't drag it out and act quickly. That's what's fair. That's what's right. Following those guidelines will get you through this. Again, no one's ever going to clap you on the back and say, hey, well done, good and faithful soldier. But do it with as much empathy as you can. And most of the time, what empathy is in this situation is to do it clearly, do it quickly, and do it directly. That's your best way forward to get through what is going to be one of the most difficult situations you're going to have to face as a leader. Because for you, what this means is you failed. Something you did was wrong that resulted in this circumstance. So if you're facing that situation or if you're dealing with having done it, that's a great opportunity for coaching to help you kind of walk through how to do this. So if you'd like to set up time to talk about that, reach out to me at clearpathcoaches.com/intro call. Hopefully in your career, you will never have to do this, and that would be a great scenario. But if you do, remember, empathy and speed are your best friends. Thanks, everybody. See you next time on Clear Path LeaderCast.